up, everyone? Mr. Octagonal here from Octagonal Gaming. Now we're back with the Octagonal Podcast here. We have a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today. 2 MLB free agent signings, of 2 big NBA injuries, and a blockbuster NFL trade. But today we're going to be starting with the big thing in college basketball, which has been the big college basketball FBI investigation. Over 25 teams who were caught with, recruiting issues, like improper benefits, which is like giving players money, because college players are not allowed to get money, which I find pretty ridiculous. Now, this topic's probably going to be talked about most of the video. I'm going to probably talk about this topic a good 6-7 minutes. So, it really started off at the beginning of the year with Louisville, when Rick Pitino got caught. He got fired. The Louisville athletic director got fired. And now Louisville's 2013 national championship title is being vacated. So if you don't know what that means, basically it never happened. But we all know Louisville still won that championship. It's just not going to be official. There's not going to be a banner, stuff like that. So 25 teams were caught with giving players or families improper benefits. And there are some big name schools in there. Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Michigan State, Texas, Kansas. I'm a huge Jayhawks fan, if y'all don't know. The Jayhawks have a big game against Texas Tech today. We'll be talking about that a little bit later in the video. And the big thing with Louisville, the improper benefits, that's what they were doing a lot of. They were doing some other cheating stuff. Brian Bowen, a recruit, he got $100,000 to commit to Louisville. And he's not on Louisville. I think he's with South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And there was another player who we found out last night who got $100,000, who's a very big name player, DeAndre Ayton. We'll be talking about him in a minute. But I was looking at some of the big name players who got improper benefits. They include Dennis Smith, Markelle Fultz, Josh Jackson, Kyle Kuzma, Miles Bridges, Colin Sexton, Wendell Carter, obviously Ayton, who we're going to say in a minute. So Josh Jackson, as I said, I'm a Kansas fan. He was a big freshman last year. 5-star recruit, one of the best freshmen in the country, and he played really well. So I saw how much money he got. His mother, not him, his mother got $2,700. That's not a lot of money at all. Meanwhile, Dennis Smith and Kyle Kuzma each got much more. Kyle Kuzma got about $10,000 from Utah, and Dennis Smith, who was another big freshman last year, got $75,000. Maybe it was $7,500. Maybe I read it wrong. We'll see if I read it wrong. I did not read that wrong. Dennis Smith did indeed get about $75,000 from NC State. So that's a that's a big chunk of change. So how will these teams be affected in March? Because a lot of these teams are really good. Duke is going to be a 1 or 2 seed. Kansas is going to be a 1 or 2 seed. Arizona is going to be a 1 or 2 seed. Michigan State's probably going to be a 1 seed. North Carolina's going to be a high seed. Kentucky, who knows, because they've been pretty underwhelming this year, which Kentucky didn't get a great recruiting class, so I'm not that surprised that they're doing not great, but I'm a little surprised that they're doing this bad. They're doing pretty bad. But anyway, DeAndre Ayton. So, I was reading something. I was looking about the Jimmy Butler injury, which we're going to be talking about next, and it said after the Jazz-Blazers game at halftime, I think it was those 2 teams, they said, we will be talking about the Jimmy Butler and Sean Miller news. So I'm like, oh, who's Sean Miller? Is he some famous person who died or something? I looked him up and I saw he's the coach for Arizona. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Then I go on ESPN, breaking news. DeAndre Ayton gets $100,000. Now, DeAndre Ayton was either the best or the second best player in this recruiting class before Marvin Bagley reclassified. So this is a big deal. It seemed like he was going to go to Kansas, but since Arizona paid him $100,000, who's going to pass up $100,000 in this situation where Arizona is not that much worse of a program than Kansas? And as a Kansas fan, that makes me a little upset. Could you just imagine a lineup with Devontae Graham, Savia Toslav Michaeluliuk, or however you say that name, because I still can't say his name, LeGerald Vick, DeAndre Ayton, and Udoka Azubuike? That would be nasty. Instead, best freshman Kansas got was Billy Preston, who did not play a single minute for us because college basketball wouldn't let him play. Now he's playing in Europe. So, personally, I don't think these teams will be too affected for March. A lot of these teams with current players who may have gotten improper benefits, Miles Bridges, from Michigan State, Wendell Carter from Duke, Colin Sexton from Alabama. They're all probably going to make the tournament. Alabama's probably going to make it, and then Duke and Michigan State are obviously going to make it. Duke's going to be a 1 or 2 seed. Michigan's probably going to be a 1 seed, if not a 2 seed. And I doubt college basketball is the only sport that has it. College football probably has this as well. In 2010, North Carolina's football team, their players got paid. I don't know who was on that team, but they still got paid. So I guarantee you that college football does this too. I guarantee you a lot of these big-name coaches use money to recruit. And personally, I think college players should be able to get money, but I don't like using money for recruiting. I don't think that's fair to teams that aren't using money. I think Villanova, I'm not sure if they mentioned Xavier. I think Xavier's in this investigation, but teams like Villanova, they're not cheating. They're playing fair. They're a really good team. So I don't think it's fair to teams like them. But as a Kansas fan, I mean, obviously I'm going to go with my team. I'm still going to be loyal to my squad. But I think this is really interesting. I expect there to be a lot more players who we hear got a lot of money, sort of like what we see with DeAndre Ayton. I expect to see a lot of that in the next week or so. I don't know if it'll be players admitting to it or stuff like this, because I don't think it said that DeAndre Ayton admitted it. It seems like it was like a recording that Sean Miller and sports agent Christian Dawkins were discussing a $100,000 payment to ensure that DeAndre Ayton would commit to Arizona instead of Kansas, or it was either Duke and Kentucky. I'm not sure if the other school was committing, but it was either Duke or Kentucky. There's plenty more we can talk about with the college basketball investigation, and I'll probably bring it up in my next Octagonal podcast, but we need to move along here. So Jimmy Butler, the Timberwolves star, got injured yesterday, and the Timberwolves lost to the Houston Rockets. He might have injured his leg or his knee, which obviously is not a good thing. If you're a Timberwolves or a Timberwolves fan, he's going to get an MRI today, so hopefully it's not a big injury. Hopefully it's not an ACL, because I'm rooting for the Timberwolves. I want them to succeed. I don't want to see players like Jimmy Butler get injured. He rested in the All-Star game because of fatigue. He plays like 37 minutes a game, but even that wasn't enough for him not to get hurt. He could have gotten hurt in the All-Star game, which would be really bad. And I don't know if there'd be any more All-Star game, or I don't know if as many players will be willing to play in the All-Star game. So, do the Timberwolves have a chance if Jimmy Butler tears his ACL? I think the clear answer is no. The Timberwolves without Butler don't have as much talent as they do last year. They don't have Zach LaVine. They don't have Ricky Rubio. Jeff Teague and Ricky Rubio are about the same skill level. Maybe Jeff Teague's a little better, but yeah. But players like Zach LaVine aren't there, and the Timberwolves sucked last year. Regardless, Zach LaVine was injured for half the year, but that's besides the point. The Timberwolves are only 3 games back of the Clippers, who are the 9 seed. So, the Timberwolves could easily get out of the playoffs. They're currently tied for the Spurs, or not tied with the Spurs, but they have 1 more win and 1 more loss than the Spurs, so they're pretty much tied. But they're very close behind the Clippers and Jazz, who are both out of the playoffs. They're only 3 games ahead of the Clippers and only 4.5 games ahead of the Utah Jazz. And those are the only teams that are probably going to leapfrog into the playoffs. The next best team in the West is the Lakers. They're about 10 games behind the Timberwolves, and the Lakers are probably trying to tank anyway, as Lonzo did return last night, by the way, after he missed 15 games. But I think the Timberwolves, I think there's a good chance they miss the playoffs if Jimmy Butler is out for the season. Do I think they will? Honestly, I don't. But I certainly think there's a chance. He's their most important player, phenomenal scorer, phenomenal defender, and the Timberwolves need him. Boston Red Sox signed J.D. Martinez to a 5-year, $110 million contract. Does this make them title favorites? Now, I don't think the contract is official. I don't know why they announced that they agreed to it, but it's not official. Doesn't really make much sense, but are the Red Sox title favorites? I've been high on the Red Sox the past few years, so I'm going to say maybe not title favorites because of teams like the Astros and Dodgers and Cubs, but I think they're going to be the AL East champions regardless if J.D. Martinez is on the squad or not. Obviously, the Yankees are great with Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, but I think the Red Sox are just more well-rounded. Mookie Betts, I think he might be my MVP pick. Xander Bogaerts, Chris Sale, they have a very, very good team. And I don't think this makes them title favorites, but I think it makes them for sure title contenders if they're not already title contenders. The Red Sox and the Celtics are in very similar situations. They're both in Boston. They're both hated. And they both have extremely untalented teams who are now ready to take the leap win now. The Celtics have Kyrie, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward. The Red Sox have Mookie Betts, Chris Sale, Xander Bogaerts, other players. And I think this is a good deal for the Red Sox because I thought JD Martinez would get a much bigger contract. I figured he was going to be on the Red Sox like the whole offseason, but I thought it was going to be for at least $200 million. So the Red Sox aren't over. Well, maybe they're overpaying him because he's like 28, 29, 30 by now. But he did a great year last year for the Tigers and D-backs, so I expect him to do well this year. Big college basketball game today, Kansas and Texas Tech. I probably would not put this game into the podcast if I'm not a Kansas fan, or if I wasn't a Kansas fan. At Texas Tech, they're number 6. Kansas is number 8. Texas Tech is favored. But I still think Kansas is going to win. Kansas is more experienced. Kansas has won 13 titles, Big 12 titles in a row. So I think they certainly know what they're doing with this. And Texas Tech, they're still a young roster. I don't think they're as ready. Keenan Evans, good player, but I just think Bill Self's experience, Devontae Graham, Sviatoslav, Udoka Azubuike, I think Kansas has a better roster. It's just that the Big 12 is really good, which Texas Tech has had to play all these good Big 12 teams too. Now, with Kansas winning, they've pretty much locked a Big 12 title for the 14th straight year. And if they lose, then it's anyone's guess. It wasn't easy for Kansas with teams like Oklahoma and Kansas State and West Virginia playing well. But now it's just down to these two teams. Big game at Texas Tech. Number 8 Kansas, number 6 Texas Tech. Who you got? Tell me in the comments below. Big trade in the NFL yesterday as Marcus Peters has been traded from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams don't have their second round pick, so I'm guessing their first round pick had to be in this deal. And I don't believe in trading first round picks for players unless that player is pretty young and they're really good. And I think Marcus Peters fits that bill. I think the Chiefs got robbed. They get a late first round pick, which is a good pick. But Marcus Peters is probably going to be better. Now, Marcus Peters, I think they're trading him because of the on-field antics. He threw the flag up in the stands against the Jets last year. Remember, at Washington, he got kicked off the football team. Still a first-round pick, and still ended up being a very good player. He's been one of the best corners in the NFL in his 3 years. Now, the Rams are going to have to pay him, which could be another reason why the Chiefs traded him. I think the Rams are willing to. Now, this means the Rams are going to get rid of Tremaine Johnson. He's a free agent. He's a very solid corner, but he's not a top corner like a Marcus Peters, and I expect him to ask for top corner money, and I also expect him to get top corner money. Kayvon Webster, he just tore his Achilles, so that's not good. And then Nickel Roby-Coleman, I'm not sure, but he might be a free agent as well. And they're 3 good players, but like, who else do they have outside of that? The Chiefs, I thought they made a very good trade by getting Kendall Fuller and a third-round pick from the Redskins. I don't think Kendall Fuller is as good as Marcus Peters, but Kendall Fuller is still a very talented young player. I think the Rams win this deal. I think the Chiefs are sort of getting robbed, but it's not as bad as we think. So Eric Hosmer got an 8-year deal from the Padres, and this move really, really confuses me. I do not get it. For either side. Eric Hosmer probably wants to win. He clearly went for the money. And the the Padres are a rebuilding team. They're not that good. And they're just throwing their money away, not for a superstar, but for a talented player. He's a good player. He's all-star talent, but he's not a superstar. It's not like they're trading for Giancarlo Stanton or Paul Goldschmidt or Chris Bryant. It's not like they're getting one of those players. The Royals, they're clearly rebuilding too. Lorenzo Cain left. Eric Hosmer left. It seems like their 2015 World Series core is pretty much gone at this point. I'm very confused by what the Padres are doing. They have some young talented players like Manuel Margot, and I just don't know what they're doing. So during the preseason, we found out that Kawhi Leonard was probably going to be out for a few weeks, which is okay, missing a little bit of the regular season. He's played 9 games this year on minute restrictions, and now it seems like he's going to be out for the year. He said so, or Greg Popovich, I think, said so. And I don't know if this is a mental thing for Kawhi or if it's actually like a season-ending injury, because it doesn't seem like a season-ending injury. I don't know if there's any tension with Kawhi and the Spurs. I don't know if the Spurs are going to trade Kawhi because Kawhi next year is the last year of his contract, and I don't think the Spurs have the core that can win a championship like they did 4 or 5 years ago when Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker were all still good players. Now, Tim Duncan's retired, and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili are on a rapid decline. They have players like DeMarcus Aldridge, Dejounte Murray, but DeMarcus Aldridge is old, and Dejounte Murray, we don't know how good he's going to be. So, I think for Kawhi Leonard's sake, San Antonio is the best place for him because of Greg Popovich. I don't think he'll be as good in another team. Like, let's just say he goes to the Lakers, just as an example. I think he'll still be a good player, but I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was in San Antonio, simply because of Greg Popovich, and Greg Popovich is such a good coach. So I think that's why Kawhi Leonard is a superstar. He's still going to be a good player, but he's not going to be a superstar outside of San Antonio. What do you guys think of all this stuff? What do you guys think of the college basketball issues? I'm out. Peace.